thank you for getting me going already, as if this weren't going to be emotional. So my presentation is about the art of gratitude, and if you're going to start a gratitude presentation, it's just logical to say thank you. I feel very grateful to the Brain Injury Association for having me here to speak with you today. I want to thank Lori Sandifer for keeping things organized and getting me squared away. All the members of the planning committee. I especially want to thank Neil, the technology guy, because my Apple laptop didn't want to play nice with others, and I started to have some panic that my presentation, which outlines everything for me and makes sure that I remember what to say to you and when to say it, wasn't working. And he got me all hooked up with a PC. Dude, I should have got a Dell. And I want to thank Tim, our keynote speaker from this morning, a fellow New Yorker. I'm originally from New York, third generation Yankees fan. How about them Red Sox, huh? But I want to thank Tim for going ahead of me and paving the way for a delightful use of profanity. Because I'm also a third generation military member. My grandmother served in the Navy, and I perhaps inherited from her the ability to swear like a sailor. So I wouldn't be here without roller derby, because I wouldn't have the injury. And I just want to point out the team's name is now the Northwoods Knockouts. Isn't it ironic? And there's Northwood Knockouts. Okay, skip ahead. And there's some delightful pictures of me in that sort of medicalized experience of having a brain injury and needing all this testing to verify that, in fact, yes, I have a brain injury, and no, my brain's not like anybody else's. Anybody in here have a toddler? Anybody in here been a toddler? Anybody spend time around toddlers? Tell me about toddlers. What are toddlers like? Busy. They're busy, yes. What else?
They're at the center of everything.
They're at the center of everything else. Yeah, at the center of everything. What else? Mischievous. Yes. What happens when toddlers are in an unfamiliar setting? They either get shy or they act out. Yes. What happens when toddlers haven't had enough rest or they get overstimulated? They have meltdowns. So, I am a 49-year-old toddler. Thank you, brain injury. Fatigue kicks my ass, and everybody's around me, because if it kicks my ass, you're going down with me. Creates frustration, or rather frustration creates problems for me. I'm easily overstimulated. Come on, buddy. I have a low tolerance for change. What comic part of the universe decided that we would have a brain injury conference in a round building? Yeah, checked in yesterday, got off the elevator. Oh, it's round, lovely. Where's my room? Where's the ice? Awesome. Relational difficulties. We're going to talk about these things, and I get easily fixated. All of these things are the kinds of things that you'll recognize in toddlers, right? So I went to my friends and I consulted the Hive Mind on Facebook, and I didn't tell them what I was doing this for, but I asked them to tell me about toddlers. And so under that heading of fatigue, There's the more tired they get, the more irritable and ornery. What was the word that Tim used? Cranky. I love that. And I really do love the use of cranky because, yes, I get over it. And this is somebody with a little more compassionate approach. Their little bodies are growing at such a quick pace that teeth, head, and body are always going to be faced with soreness and weariness. Brain, noggin is working really, really hard at recovering, really hard at creating pathways, at finding the old ones and building new ones. And it is exhausting work. And so, thank you to the friend who thinks about toddlers in that sort of more empathetic way. Then I went and consulted all of the resources about TBI, and there's no shock. As many as 70% of TBI survivors experience problems with fatigue. There's physical, worn out, just can't get my ass out of bed this morning. And there's mental fatigue and there's psychological fatigue. There's all of these pieces. It occurs more quickly and frequently in the TBI population, and extra attention is needed to pay attention to simple tasks. So I'm in a hotel. Where do I go to the bathroom? If you don't have a brain injury, where do I go to the bathroom? It's quick. You walk through the door, you see the bathroom door is there to your left, and it's easy peasy pumpkin pie. But I'm finding a path. I'm finding the way to the bathroom. And then in the middle of the night when I have to pee, I'm going, where was that again? So with all of that energy placed on the things, the everyday things, it means that there's just less resources to do the other stuff well and right, and things tire really quickly. So I said that in this talk I was going to be talking about approaching TBI losses with a practice of gratitude, and so we're starting off with, I'm going to share with you about some of these, really painful experiences. And you had to start me off with a crying. Thanks, buddy. My stepdaughter, Kate, announced that she was coming to visit from New York. She lives in the city, good girl. And we were excited to see her, and she was sensitive to, it's hard for me to have guests. It's hard for us to host people at our house, and she knows that, you have a guest in your house, now you got to figure out who's going to use the toilet when, and who's going to take a shower, and if they're in the shower, do not turn the sink on, or so yeah. So there's all these things, and if you don't have a brain injury, it's stressful to have somebody in your house. But now, she was sensitive, and she asked, is it okay? And I really wanted to see Kate, and we were getting ready to go away on a vacation, and I'm not giving a talk today about diet, but I will say that my brain injury recovery stalled and was in horrible shape until I started eating an autoimmune paleo diet, and that means I have to cook everything from scratch. But I'll tell you what, as long as I'm eating the right stuff, I do pretty well. And as soon as I eat the wrong stuff, damn the DoubleTree for their oatmeal chocolate chip cookies served warm when you check in. I didn't eat it. I did not eat it because I wanted to be here for you today. But it's so hard to prepare all these things. So I'm preparing the food. Kate is there. I have a guest in the house. I'm happy to see her. She's helping, giving instructions to somebody so that they can help. Also, it's harder to do than just doing it yourself. But I wanted to include her, and so we're doing all the things, and then her sister wants to see her, and her sister makes these arrangements, and I try to help with the arrangements, and then next thing you know, shit, piss, goddamn motherfucker, I am not speaking. For good reason, she's angry at the things that I've said. She sees me as controlling. We put things in a particular order because that's the way that makes it so that I can do them. Like I can do more if I've planned it ahead and we follow the plan. And I miss spontaneity. I can't tell you how I miss spontaneity. And she wanted to be spontaneous with her sister. And what she got from me, I'm sitting on the toilet, taking my little time out in my little quiet space for a couple of moments, and I'm learning that the plan is about to change. And I didn't even know how it fell apart, but first there was the text tirade, and then there was the hollering as she's sitting out in the driveway, and then there's her husband, and what a mess. What a mess. That was just before 4th of July weekend. They came over last Sunday for the first time with our grandchildren. It sucks having rage and not having control. Frustration. Toddlers will get into anything they can reach and will climb necessary to reach it, and when denied, they glow like a volcano. Man, I am reaching for life. I'm reaching for engagement all the time. And it is so frustrating to not be able to do all the things. I used to be able to do all the things. And sometimes, yeah, it's true. Can't reach it. Don't do that, Darren. It's a bad idea. That's telling me don't do it, Darren. That's a bad idea. That's a bad idea. Also, imagine the frustration of desperately wanting to experience what's around you for the first time while you're fighting your own body. I'm asking them about toddlers. They're telling my story. Oh, and here's what the resources say. Feelings of sadness, frustration, and loss are common after brain injury, and these feelings often appear during the later stages of recovery after the individual has become more aware of the long-term situation. Amen. Amen. So for me, frustration means I'm less able to engage because of my energy limitations. You will probably discover my diminished word-finding abilities as time passes, and maybe I'm hoping the adrenaline and the oxytocin and all the good that's going on in my brain as I look out there and I see all of you is going to help get me through this. But as my husband and I were talking about before, you just got to get till 12 o'clock, and then you can whatever, leave it all on the field. So that's what I'm going to do. But you'll probably discover the word-finding problems. There's this cycle of forgetting that I have limits, right? Because now I have almost 4 years post-recovery, and I've figured out the things to do, and because I've figured out the things to do and they help me to do what I want to do pretty effectively, I forget that I have limitations. Oh, I feel fine. I'm gonna, after packing up the car and making the trip to Portland and checking in and turning down the oatmeal chocolate chip cookie, I'm gonna go to Nordstrom Rack and I'm gonna do a little bit of shopping because we don't have good stores in Bangor anymore. Forget the limits. Encounter people who forget that I have limits or don't know about the brain injury and don't know that I have these issues, and having to explain the limits, which takes a lot of words. And sometimes I have a better ability to tactfully describe a situation, and sometimes I'm just too tired and I can't. And then there's not having the words or the energy to review those limits, and realizing that the person I'm talking to isn't going to get it, and trying not to take that personally, that they don't care enough to get it, and realizing that it's not everybody else's job to get it. It's my job to do my best. Turning down invitations to do things, because it's really a bad idea for me to do that and try to go to work the next day. And then after a while of turning people down, not being invited anymore. And then there's this lack of warning with symptoms. So I play the Celtic harp in a group of people who we do these sessions at the Irish pub twice a month, and everybody else gets together every week on a Tuesday night, but that's a work night, so I've done that twice. But we also get invited to go do gigs, to do these performances, and I love playing Irish music with my friends. I love performing. I love the experience of connecting with audience members and making music and fun. We have fun, and I tell horrible Irish jokes. So Seamus is my husband's over there going, oh my God, which one's she going to tell? Seamus is he's on his way to Dublin, and he gets a little turned around, and he pulls into the pub, and he asks the barsman, he says, excuse me, could you tell me the quickest way to get to Dublin? And the barsman says, well, you be walking or you be driving? And he says, I'd be driving. The barsman says, wait, that's the quickest way to get to Dublin. So I love doing these things. I love going out and telling horrible Irish jokes and playing great Irish music with wonderful people. It's fun. And I also know I have a day job, and I'm able to do my day job, and I'm really excited about that. I've been working full-time for a little over a year now. And in the last couple of months, not only have I been working full-time, but my caseload is actually on par with what a caseload is supposed to be. It's not what it was before my injury, but I am pulling my fair share of the weight now, and that feels great. But if I go out and I play a gig on a Thursday night, Friday, the clients I see Friday as a clinical social worker with combat veterans are probably not going to get the best version of me as a therapist. So there's this kind of trade-off. Do I, don't I? Do I, don't I? And my friend Chuck had an invitation to do a gig, and he thought that the music that he and I played together would be the right combination, just the two of us. And I said, well, it's a school night, and I thought he lives in Ellsworth, which is an hour away. And I said, I can't do Ellsworth on a school night. And he comes back and he says, but I wrote him this long email, keep asking, please keep asking, because I'm still getting better. It's slower now, but I'm still improving, and one day I'm going to say yes, and I really, really, really want to say yes. And he writes back and he says, well, it's in Bangor. Oh, it's in Bangor. Good. Maybe I could do that. I should ask my husband, because he's the one who really suffers if I'm exhausted. And I said, all right, I'm going to talk to Jim. And this whole process of negotiating via email, it's exhausting. And Chuck gets it about the brain injury, but he just he doesn't understand that this whole process is exhausting. And then I say, yes, I can do it. I got the blessing to do it, as long as I'm not out too late. Don't keep me out too late. And he says, oh, I think our friend Chris is going to join us too. Well, now I need practice, because we haven't rehearsed together. And so I say, well, so when are we going to practice? And he says, well, I'm available this time and this time and this time. None of these are weekends. So now he's got me out on a school night to rehearse and to do the thing. And so we're finally trying to nail this down. And he says, well, we don't need to rehearse. Brain injury. I need to practice ahead of time. I can't walk in blind. And Thursday, I can do it Thursday. I can't do it Thursday. And I'm up to here, I've lost all, I've used up all of my energy, I've used up all my resources, I've left it all on the field, and so I just walked away. And I don't think we're quite right yet. I saw him at a session last week, and he gave me a big hug. And I think hug is the universal symbol for it's okay. I hope so. I hope so. Overstimulation. Lots of patience is necessary, as well as the willingness to risk embarrassment as you leave the grocery store with a screaming toddler in the event of a public meltdown. So this autoimmune paleo diet, I've been working with a particular kind of physician. There's my word finding. Functional medicine. Oh, found it. And there's only one in the Bangor area, and he knows this stuff, but sometimes it's a little bit like talking to a used car salesman, and long day, and it was snowing, and the roads were bad, and so just to get to the appointment had used up lots of resources driving in the snow. And then he's trying to sell me on this thing, and I'm like, no, I don't think that's going to work for me. And I'm trying to tell him why, and he's like, yeah, but if you want to feel better, you'll do this. And I'm like, are you saying I don't want to feel better? And I'm giving him all the warning signs. And I have told this man that I have problems with rage. I have problems with emotional regulation. And he's missing the cues. And he's still trying to sell me the fucking car, which is what I said. I don't want fucking car. And he tried to sell me the car one more time. You would think. So it's his fault, really, that I swore at him and left the office slamming doors, and now I don't have a functional medicine doctor. It's been long enough. Maybe he would take my call. I don't know. Public melting. Overstimulation. I love this friend said, some will retreat, cry, and hide in various body parts. Stare your belly button, or suck your thumb, I guess, until they're removed from the situation. These are the introverts, right? The ones who get quiet. The extroverts become untouchable, like someone gave them a package of Oreos and a pot of coffee. Do you think I'm the introvert or the extrovert? Yes, the extrovert. So the running, screaming, to the point you won't claim them anymore. My mother lives in Portland on the other coast. She came for a visit 14 months ago. It was the first time she had seen me since my injury. So, by phone, she's trying to do the motherly support thing. And when we're both doing well, we have limits. and we've always acknowledged this. When we're both doing well, we have limits. I was finishing up school in London, and her gift to me was Eurail passes for the two of us to travel around Europe, and we're in Italy when we hit our limit. And we figured it out, but it was really, not pretty. But we needed to both still be together because she doesn't speak Italian, and my father was going to be the final destination to get us on our plane home. So we figured it out, and we fixed it, and that was pre-brain injury. So that means a lot better ability to negotiate when things go badly. But in Italy, that wasn't an option. When she came to visit, it was going to be a little different because now we're post-injury, and we know what the limits are, and we have it figured out at home what we need to do when we're going to be doing anything, and. She wasn't so good at adhering the one instruction we gave, which is packing is so hard. Packing the car, making sure that I'm remembering all the things, especially since special diet, got to make sure I have all the ingredients with me because we were going to Passamaquoddy Bay in Perry, Maine. We were going to be off the grid. Grocery store, where? And our grocery store with special ingredients? No, that would be 2.5 hours back in Bangor. So packing, vacations are the most taxing thing that we do. And any survivor and any survivor's family member in here knows just how hard it is to get in a car and go somewhere, or goodness, get on a plane and go somewhere. I heard somebody this morning was telling me that she forgot the suitcase with her clothes at home. That sounds like my experience too. So her only instruction, Mom's only instruction was, don't interrupt. When I'm doing the packing, go somewhere else, be quiet, don't ask questions. Because if you ask a question, then I lose track of what I'm thinking, and if I lose track of what I'm thinking, it's gone. So that by the time we get to Perry, Maine, I don't have a hat and I don't have a jacket. And yes, it's August, but in Perry, Maine, at night it drops into the low 50s and sometimes 40s. So, long story short, meltdown happened near the end of her trip, and it's been 14 months. since my mother and I have spoken. And, one of the things is she just doesn't get that toddler. So there was the point at which she didn't claim me anymore. And I think there's still this point where she's having trouble claiming me. Low tolerance for change. Oops, background noise. Runs me down like you wouldn't believe. Multiple conversations at once. Oh, hello, conference attendees. What are we all going to do on the break? We're going to have conversations, and there's going to be other conversations going on. So, it's just a challenging environment, and that means take care, take care, take care, take care. Novel situations, anything that's new is very hard. And complexity. So I'm a clinical social worker with combat veterans and military sexual trauma survivors and people who are immediate family members of those who are killed on active duty. Easy peasy, not complex at all. Complexity. We moved. We moved our vet center from the location where it had been for decades. Certainly the only place that I had ever worked, the only office that I had ever worked in, that I painted myself, because the VA didn't have money for painting offices at the time. My place, and moved into a new place, and the new place is wonderful, except that there's no insulation, and it's a big giant box, and you can hear the people who are 50 feet away, 3 offices away, like they are sitting next to you in the room. And we know right away that this is going to be a problem and that we got to fix it. And the government, how quick the government works, and contracting and getting insulation to fix this. But they're working on it. They're working on it. They're working on it. And they had this requirement in our new space that there had to be an entry control point, that people couldn't just walk in our door, that they have to ring a bell and be admitted into the door, for safety. And this is Maine, and the message that we're sending to clients is, we don't trust you. So there's this doorbell that they ring to get in the door if there's not somebody sitting right at the desk. And the doorbell is 10 feet away from my office, and there's no insulation. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. I'm having a conversation with somebody about their trauma. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. And days, this has gone on for days, and our director was called away to work in a different area while all this is going on. And he comes back, and my symptoms are so bad that for the first time in a year, I'm back to walking like Frankenstein, these heavy steps. I know it's bad. I know I'm getting close to that point where I'm going to do that thing where I can't move and I can't speak, and I'm not going to be able to work in this office anymore. And my clients who have, returned to work with me after this long absence, they're just growing to trust me again and trust that I'm going to be there. I'm not going to disappear on them. And now, ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. And so I'm standing there, and I'm like, you got to do something about this door. This is not good. And we're standing in the entry area, and another veteran is coming in the door, and he said, Darren, we're all dealing with this. And I said, yeah, but you know what? We're not all going to have a fucking seizure. To my director who has protected me from all the powers that be so that I can keep my job, my director who is just this most compassionate and warm person who also has had a brain injury and totally understands and gets it. And I'm standing there and I'm swearing at him in front of clients. I'm so lucky I still have a job. So, what helps is calmness, reframing situations, the low tolerance for change, the need for structure and consistency, new situations or expectations require more processing. Relational difficulties. I love this is my favorite quote about toddlers from my friend. They're jerks, like puppies on speed. And then somebody else, actually my stepmother, chimed in, remember that you were a toddler once too. I want to get to the good stuff. I have problems taking, but this is not part of the good stuff. I have problems taking turns in conversations. I have difficulty attending. You know, I can do this, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's coming in, especially if I'm tired, especially if there's background noise, especially if there's been lots going on. I tell inappropriate jokes, oh gosh. So, you know, I'm out of work, I'm not able to work, and we were already critically understaffed when I had my injury. It was really awful timing. There were 3 of us who worked in the office. We had been without a team leader for several years. We were just hanging on by our fingertips. Roller derby was my way of taking out my frustration, doing this really hard work. And at the end of the day of advocating and dealing with bureaucracy, there's nothing better at the end of a day of bureaucracy than going out and hitting some bitches. That's how I talk about roller derby. But the thing is, my injury came at this terrible time, so we're critically understaffed. And I have transferred several of my groups over to another clinician, and he is working his tail off. We already were, and now he's got more to do. And the more to do includes this World War II and Korean War veterans group that I had been facilitating since I started, and a group of Vietnam veterans who meet in the evenings who can be at times really challenging to work with. And a number of them died within a couple of months of my sustaining the injury. And what did I say to my colleague? Dude, why are you killing off all my clients? Inappropriate jokes. I'm better, but I still sometimes tell inappropriate jokes. It was okay for me to tell you about Seamus, though, right? Yeah. Right? Yeah. Missed cues, and then, of course, the outbursts. Easily fixated. I love about this, if you want to trap one, set up multiple stations. So, you know, here's me in the round building. Check me out in the grocery store, that's a lot of fun. But I get fixated on thoughts that won't let go. I repeat activities, and some stories I repeat. And sometimes that's because of memory, because I'm not remembering, and sometimes it's because I miss cues. I went to, after 11 months of not getting better, we were worried. We were worried. I'm not getting better, and actually I started getting worse. So we went to see the specialist at Spalding Rehab, and I'm really glad that I went. And part of the evaluation, to find out how things are and how my brain works, is the doctor asked for me to do words that begin with F. You have 1 minute, go. Fucking frolicking. Fabulously. F words, F words, F words. I had lots of them. I love words. I'm a linguist. I love words. Unfortunately for my husband, it was coming up with F words for, the next 14 days. A fortnight of F words. I'm not entirely a toddler, though. I look like a typical 49-year-old. I don't look like somebody who's going to blow up at you. I have a larger vocabulary, a larger, more colorful fucking vocabulary. A toddler uses one salty expression, and we try really hard not to laugh. But when a 49-year-old woman gives you the look, the look. My husband knows the look. A 49-year-old gives you these words and that look, and it's, it's bad. It's bad. I know the consequences immediately, and I can remember. So I feel embarrassed, I feel ashamed, and I get detached. And I have this lifetime of high function, of accomplishment and responsibility, and it's really, really frustrating to not have that level of competence anymore. It's like watching a train wreck and being helpless to stop it. So what helps toddlers? Rest. I just love being told to take a nap. Not. Redirect, exercise, quiet, routine, choice. Toddlers, you give them the two choices that you're okay with. Do you want to wear this outfit or do you want to wear this outfit? And both of them include a sweater because it's cold outside. But they just see I get choice, and they get to make the choice. Some amazing dads out there telling their Facebook stories of letting their children go out wearing their pixie skirts and things because it's their choice, and giving them agency, allowing them to have choice. It's really important. I want to have choices. I don't want to keep having evidence that I'm not capable of making good choices. And finally, expressive outlets, which helps us to sort of transition into what I really want to talk about, which is how do I take this and turn it into something else, something wonderful, something beautiful. And what's the opposite of rage and resentment? Why, it's compassion and it's love, and a component of this is a practice of gratitude. And so frontal lobe, this is where we do this emotional regulation. This is where that ability to navigate really complex situations comes into play. And I know that I want the activity in my frontal lobe to be over in that part of the frontal lobe that experiences joy and contentment and compassion. I'm not real happy with it spending so much time on that side that experiences depression and frustration and anger and rage. And so because of years of practice with veterans and teaching them mindfulness as a means of developing skills to help them to better regulate all the things, I have this experience of knowing that form follows function. So if I want things to be joyful, if I want things to be happy, then I need to look at those things. I need to spend, it's not that I don't acknowledge that those other things are happening. I'm painfully aware. But what do I do? How do the question I ask myself is, how do I go about stimulating this part of my brain that can do love and happiness and compassion? And so I resumed a practice of gratitude. So the other thing I said that you would be able to do is talk about 3 different ways to practice gratitude. And one way is a daily practice in a journal or with a partner. So I just want you to take a moment and think about one thing from your morning so far that you feel grateful about. And turn to the person next to you and share it.
I'm grateful for the reason to come. And it's when we hold on to
Awesome! I'd leave you doing that for the rest of the talk because because that's what's really going to help all of us have better days. But I want to share with you the other pieces. So bringing you back. There's been a lot of research recently about gratitude, and it shows that a daily gratitude practice can reduce anxiety and depression, and it can improve sleep. Does a lot of good stuff, and it is evidence-based, and these are studies that have been repeated in different ways, and it keeps showing the same thing, that we do better. We all do better with a practice of gratitude. Another way of doing gratitude is to keep a box. I have this beautiful shaker box, and inside the box, on top of the box are these little slips of paper. And when something cool happens, we write on the slip of paper and we put it in the box. And at the end of the year, either on New Year's Eve or if we fall asleep before midnight, on New Year's Day, we open the box And we revisit all these great things. This is from 2015. Edelman's pass in a closely fought playoff game. Football, I'm a Patriots fan. Does that get me any credit back? Finding a lady slipper in the woods. Evelyn, the pot holder lady in Island Falls. There's this woman in Island Falls, and she collects fabric scraps, and she makes pot holders, and she gives them away. And we were up having a little retreat, and she gave away these pot holders to me. And so I'll always remember Evelyn, the pot holder lady. And the last thing for me is this show of hands. So convalescence and recovery wouldn't have been possible without a huge, huge circle of people. And so what I do is I trace the outlines of their hands, and then I fill the hands with patterns. It's where I take that repetition that can be fixation and problematic. I turn that repetition into filling these these hands with this art. And the hands are actually in the back of the room, and I'm noticing they're pulling out the box lunches, and they're working around the hands, so they'll be there for you to see. They're a way of being fixated but being healthy. And as I repeat those lines, I get to think about the person whose hands it is. So this is Shelby Fastback, one of my fellow Derby players. She looked for doable ways to keep me engaged with the team. I sing the national anthem. It's what I can do. Sometimes I leave right after I sing the national anthem. Sometimes I stick around and I cheer. She helped organize a fundraiser that kept our bills paid, too. And then I color them in. This is George. George is the office manager, and he filled out mountains of paperwork to help me get leave. He filled out my leave forms for me because technology kicks my butt. As I make errors in technology, he cleans up the messes. This is my friend Heather. She's a fellow musician. She learned all about TBI from me. She wanted to know. She wanted to know what my experience was, and so as I groped for my truths and I started to find them, she wanted to hear what they were. She drove me to events because I could always drive, but if I drove, then there wasn't enough energy for me to engage and then drive back. So she would drive to these events so I could play music with my friends. And she would run interference, and if she could see that I was starting to, she would, hey Darren, come here a minute. Oh Darren, I'm afraid we have to go. I have to get back for an appointment, and she would rescue me. And she signed up for a brain injury conference. When she heard I was going to be a Beverly Bryant speaker, and she's sitting right here. We got her to cry too. So I took those hands. Remember what this looks like, okay? Because then what I did was I started to move the canvases. And I'd take a canvas and I would write the words about what this person meant, or what they contributed, or how they helped. So there's Drive Miss Darren, and running interference. And then I would add more layers. Just patterns and colors. And I would bring in, you might recognize that sort of that black shape. I would bring in those patterns that were in the drawn hands. And then I would add other shapes. Heather's from Scotland, and she loves Scottish music. She loves all things Scotland, and so, of course, thistles. And bringing in the layers. Oops. And then I need hands, so that I can outline the hands. And there's her hand. I can't even look at her now. I'm playing the peg whistle. And then I add words. Strong, graceful hands firmly take the wheel, steering a path through pitfalls and confusion, carrying me to celebrations, and then safely shepherding me home. There's lots more for me to show you. This is the doctor at Spalding Rehab who asked for the Fs. Validating, yes, I really have a brain injury, because I was doubting myself. I was thinking, this I'm malingering. I must be, because I can do all these other things. Yes, you have an extraordinary brain. I love him for that too. And no, you're not making it up. And yes, you will make a full recovery. These are my speech therapists at the Conley Speech and Language Center. Wonderful students. This is my craniosacral therapist. And she's been magnificent. And hers says, wise and caring hands, they know where to touch, to ease, to move, releasing the dam of tangled energy, letting the mind once again flow, radiant and free. My friend Stephanie, who went on walks with me and listened and took my side. Well, of course he shouldn't have kept trying to sell you that used car. He should have known. Yes. The steady hand of a true friend, reaching out across isolation and frustration to lend an ear, offer good counsel, and lift me up when the journey has left me weary. I don't have the resources within myself to still be able to volunteer as a hospice volunteer. But I did, and for many years. And there was this woman, Mary, and Mary went off hospice 8 years ago. She's back to being a hospice volunteer herself. She's 87 years old. And so I cared for her, played the harp for her, met with her weekly until she wasn't a hospice volunteer anymore. And then, I'd visit with her from time to time, because she's just a wonderful human being. And, you surround yourself with wonderful human beings because they remind you how to live. And when I had my head injury, Mary started praying for me every day. And hers says, worn hands, clasped in prayers of love and healing. Each bead reflects an intention anchored deep in the soul and reaching high into heaven. Faithful hands. And this is Mary. The canvases are a means for me to reach back toward those who have given me a hand, to reflect and honor their contributions in my life and to reconnect with them. And this is my husband, Jim's hand. Jim is not a Walmart greeter in New York. Different Jim. He took on all the chores, he had to do all the things. He watches out for when things are going wrong. He gives me the signal. But he gives me warning, but he still gives me the choice. He lets me make bad choices. Even though sometimes the consequences mean that I'm going to blow at him, he still lets me make the bad choices, and he helps. And I could not be here without him. His hand is silver and gold to reflect the richness, and red at the center on his heart. I'll try and read this, but it's not going to go well. Loving hands that tenderly hold the heart, containing my vulnerable soul's essence, lifting away all doubt and fear, reminding me that love is all that matters now and always. So, toddlers, this is a time of firsts. For me, so many firsts. After recovery, all the things that, the first time you can do them. The first time I could listen to the radio. The first time I could listen to the radio and be in the car. The first time I could work a 40-hour week. The first time I performed harp and storytelling solo, which just happened last month, and it took me 3 days to recover from it afterwards. But yay! First. Everything they need to know in life they learn during these first few years. They're still so close to the spirit world. May they retain their childhood as long as possible in a world so quick to encourage growing up. I've gotten to be a toddler again, and now I get to do it differently. I get to do it with all the things I know as a grown-up. And it's pretty special to be able to celebrate first, to be able to connect with people, seeing life differently, not taking this beautiful brain for granted, not taking being able to walk for granted, not taking being able to talk for granted, and I'm certainly not taking for granted the amazing community of people and friends that I have. And gratitude for you, fellow survivors who give me a sense of belonging and normalcy. Last year was my first year coming to the Brain Injury Conference, and it was so nice to spend some time with people in my tribe. Helping professionals who are taking the time to understand and learn so that you can help us better and more, and family members and friends who help us, keep helping us despite how hard we can make it. Thank you all. Thank you all.